Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here today. And thank you, President Lindbergh, for your very kind and generous introduction, and to you and to Ambassador Carson and to the U.S. Institute for Peace. I'm very grateful for the invitation to participate in this important and timely symposium. And it's a great pleasure to be here with General Walthauser. Thank you, sir, for taking the time to do this. You've done incredible work at AFRICOM, and we're very grateful. We were last together in London at an event on Somalia with Secretary Mattis, and it's always a pleasure to be with you, sir. Thank you. It's a tremendous pleasure for me to cross 23rd Street and leave behind the 1950s federal architecture of the State Department for the soaring beauty of the United States Institute of Peace. USIP has proven itself to be a unique and vital institution within our policy landscape. It is not only the keeper and dispenser of remarkable expertise in the practice of peace building and conflict resolution, but it is also a convener and convoker of first category. USIP brings together some of our best strategic thinkers and most interesting organizations to discuss, debate, and shape American foreign policy. Today is one such occasion. I'm honored to help open this symposium on the relationship between the United States and Africa, with a special focus on the emerging partnerships that will define the relationship in the 21st century. As Nancy noted, I'm long in tooth as a diplomat. I've served our great republic for 34 years. Curiously, I've spent 17 years of that career in the 20th century and 17 years in the 21st century. This fulcrum has allowed me to witness and participate in some remarkable moments of transformation and change. It has also taught me that history does not end, it accelerates. Today, change has velocity, driven by technology and connectivity. My experience has taught me that American power and American values can have a transformative impact on global change. I believe this is especially true for Africa. The partnership that we offer is especially relevant for countries in the midst of profound transitions, from authoritarian to democratic governments, from exclusive to inclusive societies, from autarkic models of development to ones based upon open markets and regional integration, and from global isolation to intense participation in world events. As we consider the purpose and nature of our relationship with Africa, it is important to note two things. First, Africa's emergence as a point of global interest and strategic convergence. What happens on the continent over the next few years will shape the world's economy, security, and well-being. Africa is no longer an addendum to global geopolitics. Instead, it is a bridge from the Indo-Pacific region to the larger Atlantic community, while also connecting directly to Europe and the Middle East. In the State Department, it touches every geographic bureau, and at the Defense Department, it connects to every geographic command. In short, Africa's centrality makes it immediately relevant to our success and demands attention and engagement. Second, as far as the United States is concerned, Africa is already a continent of allies and partners. With a few notable exceptions, the vast majority of African states share our commitment to free markets, equitable trade, democracy and the rule of law, secure borders, and effective responses to global terrorist threats. The African states' progress towards open markets and free trade have spurred economic growth and development and tremendous opportunity across the continent. Indeed, 6 of the world's 10 fastest growing economies are in Africa. By 2030, Africa will represent almost a quarter of the world's workforce and consumers, and by 2050, Africa's population is projected to double to 2 billion people. And our balance of trade with Africa is near parity, thanks to booming demand for infrastructure investment, aircraft, consumer products, and services. African states consistently attract strong investor attention from American companies. Democracy and the rule of law are also advancing on the continent. Competitive participatory elections are becoming the norm. Just 2 weeks ago, we witnessed the Supreme Court of Kenya's decision to overturn the August 8th presidential elections, and President Kenyatta's mature decision to respect that ruling. The independent legal process and broad support and respect for the court's decision reflect the strength of Kenya's democracy. Finally, African allies and partners are stepping forward to lead regional initiatives to address long-running conflicts and humanitarian crises. In the Lake Chad Basin, Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon formed the multinational joint task force to fight Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa, and are coordinating military operations, civilian security, and humanitarian assistance. The United States is proud to support this and other regional initiatives to bring security and stability to citizens affected by conflict and food insecurity. Though there is much to commend in recent developments on the continent, we all know that African states continue to face significant challenges. And any relationship, however strong, requires care and nurturing if it is to grow. As President Trump, Secretary Tillerson, and our national security team engage with our African partners, they will be guided by 4 strategic purposes. First, advancing peace and security. Doing so yields dividends for citizens in Africa and advances our own national security. We are looking to African partners to take the lead in resolving regional conflict, and we will continue to partner with the African Union and regional organizations that lead successful efforts to end violence and prevent mass atrocities. While our hope and commitment to seeing an end to the devastating man-made crises in the DRC, South Sudan, and other locations is enduring, the long-term sustainability of our financial commitment requires continuing contributions from our assistance partners. We will also require greater political commitment from African leaders who want peace and stability in their countries and in their region. This will ensure that our support and investment is effective and enduring. On the continent, we are working to build the capacity of regional peacekeepers, whose numbers continue to increase in Africa. In the past year, we have provided training to peacekeepers from over 20 African countries actively engaged in UN and African Union peacekeeping operations. This engagement has allowed more than 10 battalions to deploy more effectively into some of the world's most dangerous operations in Somalia, Mali, South Sudan, and the Central African Republic. Generously, Africans now comprise over 70% of the peacekeepers in Africa, up from 40% just 10 years ago. We acknowledge that peacekeeping comes with tremendous risk. We both mourn and honor those Africans who have given their lives in peacekeeping operations. The United States also addresses peace and security through humanitarian assistance to vulnerable populations such as refugees and internally displaced people. In 2016, we provided more than $1.5 billion to UNHCR's humanitarian operations. With the support of USAID and the Department of State's Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration, for example, an estimated 1.8 million people in South Sudan receive life-saving humanitarian assistance every month. Our work to advance peace and security is not just regional. Increasingly, it is global. African states are partnering with us to address the danger that North Korea presents to the world. We asked African countries to join us in restricting political and economic engagement with North Korea, shutting down North Korea's illicit trade networks, and publicly opposing North Korea's reckless missile and nuclear tests. Numerous African partners have taken concrete action, but more needs to be done. Second, countering the scourge of terrorism. This administration seeks to partner with African allies to confront and counter terrorism in Africa, including defeating Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, and ISIS West Africa. In recent years, African countries have intensified their regional and domestic efforts to take greater ownership on this front, often with great success. In Somalia, the African Union and Somali security forces are driving out al-Shabaab. Working through AU leadership, regional peacekeeping partners such as Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, Burundi, and Djibouti are helping to lead the way in this effort. Military, law enforcement, and intelligence tools are vital to defend against these threats, but military force alone is not enough to sustain peace. We must work with our partners, including civil society, traditional authorities, and religious leaders, to address root causes of conflict, combat marginalization, and create economic opportunity. There is no long-term solution to terrorism absent this comprehensive approach. Any progress in our counterterrorism efforts, however, will be undone by abusive and illegal behavior by security forces. We will continue to hold our allies to the highest standards and ensure that individuals who fail to respect human rights in this important fight are held accountable. The challenge now is for our African partners to complement their successes on the battlefield with trained law enforcement personnel to provide civilian security and economic policies to kickstart moribund local economies. Third, promoting prosperity through economic growth and investment. This administration seeks to do business not just in Africa, but with Africa, moving the focus of our economic relationship with the continent from aid to trade and investment. Trade will be free, fair, and reciprocal, and our investors will be more competitive. This is about creating jobs for both Americans and Africans throughout the continent. One of our most important bipartisan endeavors in the economic arena is the African Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA. AGOA has been the cornerstone of U.S. economic engagement with the countries of sub-Saharan Africa since 2000. To highlight a few of the achievements, U.S. investment in sub-Saharan Africa increased from $9 billion in a year in 2001 to $34 billion in 2014 and created over 300,000 jobs across Africa. U.S. exports to Africa rose at an even faster rate, from $6 billion in 2000 to $25 billion in 2014. And U.S. imports from sub-Saharan Africa under AGOA totaled almost $11 billion in 2016, a 14% increase from the previous year alone. These successes and the knowledge that trade helps strengthen democratic institutions and reinforces regional stability are prime reasons the U.S. Congress overwhelmingly approved legislation in 2015 to reauthorize AGOA for 10 more years. We remain committed to our economic partnerships with Africa and will continue to seek opportunities to strengthen two-way trade and investment. USAID, for example, has established 3 trade hubs to help the African private sector take advantage of AGOA and expand exports to the United States. Additionally, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, or MCC, provides economic assistance to governments that have already established good policy environments. Most of the MCC's work has been and continues to be in Africa. Finally, promoting democracy and good governance. Efforts to secure enduring peace are undermined when governments fail to provide good governance and uphold the rule of law, the foundation for security and the driver of inclusive economic growth in free societies. We see the corrosive effects of corruption as fundamentally detrimental to the future success of African societies. An AU study estimated corruption costs the continent roughly $150 billion last year, or per year. Bribes and low-level corruption worsen poverty and inequality and harm citizens' faith in government. Corruption, particularly at the highest levels, deters foreign investment, foments instability, and diminishes the capacity of security forces and other institutions to deliver basic services. The United States will continue to partner with regional organizations to advance good governance and the rule of law. In the Gambia, when President Jammeh reneged on his commitment to accept the results of the presidential election in December 2016, the Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS, stepped up with other regional leaders to take a principled stand for democracy. ECOWAS and regional leaders organized a strong diplomatic campaign to influence President Jammeh to give up power. He ultimately stepped aside, peacefully ceding power to his democratically elected successor, President Barrow. This was an excellent example of an African-conceived and African-managed effort in strengthening democracy, and then one that we are proud to support. Luckily, our Acting Assistant Secretary for African Affairs, Ambassador Don Yamamoto, will talk later today in a deeper and more detailed fashion on the importance of good governance and democracy. So it's not my purpose to take from him his speech. But I do want to underscore that, as Nancy noted, I've spent most of my career in Latin America and Africa. I spent 2 years working in the African Bureau on Central African Affairs and 4 years in Johannesburg as a regional labor officer, traveling throughout Southern Africa, but also working directly with the South African trade union movement from 1992 to 96. I learned a lot during this period of time, but I learned a lot about democratic development. And the thing that has struck me and that I've carried with me from Africa is not just the importance of civil society and grassroots development to democracy, but also that our understanding of democracy, the United States' understanding of democracy, must move beyond the institutional and electoral aspects of democracy and must understand the importance of building democratic societies and states. Because ultimately our purpose is not just to allow citizens to have a voice in determining their national destiny and creating a mechanism for peaceful transfer of power. It's also to help countries ensure that individuals have a voice in determining their own destiny. In other words, in having not just the opportunities, but the resources necessary in order to achieve what they want to achieve, what our founding fathers would call the pursuit of happiness. There's remarkable people in this audience today. I see dear friends like Linda Thomas Greenfield and others who have worked so hard on Africa. And I've been lucky enough over time to work with groups of diplomats who shaped my understanding of diplomacy and shaped my understanding of the world. And many of them have worked on Africa. And my time in Africa has added to that education, because it was not just a diplomatic education, it was a political education. And I learned from the Africans I worked with. And it is knowledge that I have carried with me across an entire career. And as I noted at the beginning, I understand and recognize the profound impact the United States can have in helping societies shape themselves. And as we look deeper into our future with Africa and the partnerships that we have already and that we will continue to develop, it's absolutely important, it is absolutely important that we become relevant every day to Africa's success. And again, I thank you all for your patience this morning. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Let me conclude by saying that Africa is a place of trusted friends and partners. We must continue to journey together in our quest for peace and security, inclusive democracy and good governance, a trained workforce with economic opportunities, and an empowered civil society. As an old African proverb says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We plan to go together with our African partners. Thank you very much.